Welcome to the Live Free, Love Life podcast, where we discuss how to create more freedom so we can love our lives no matter what we're going through. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome to today's episode of the Live Free, Love Life podcast. I am so excited to be with you, and I'm going to start today with a couple of questions. Are you tired of feeling resentful or taken advantage of? Do you put up with certain behaviors but resent the people that are behaving that way? Do you get frustrated when people don't follow your requests? Do you find yourself saying yes when you really want to say no? If any of these were a yes, it's time to talk about boundaries, your ticket to freedom and empowerment. So let's face it, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. But here's the thing, boundaries aren't just good for you, they are essential for healthy relationships and overall well-being. They are the invisible force field that protects your energy, your values, and your sense of self. And a lot of people are confused about what boundaries really are. So let's first get clear on that. There is really only one way to keep an expectation that someone isn't living up to and feel good. And that's by setting and holding boundaries for yourself. A boundary is not something we use to control other people. It is not an ultimatum. It should never be set from anger or frustration. If you don't set it from love, you're doing it wrong, which is probably why it's not working. Boundaries are more about defining what's okay and not okay for you. As Brene Brown, the queen of vulnerability research, puts it, boundaries are simply our lists of what's okay and what's not okay. Simple, right? But oh so powerful. Now, my personal favorite definition of a boundary comes from boundaries expert Nedra Tawwab. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. We set boundaries because we love ourselves and the other person involved. When we don't set boundaries and we let people treat us in ways that don't feel good to us, it's really hard to love them. We set the boundary out of love for both of us. A boundary does not tell someone what to do. It indicates your expectations and what you will do if your boundary is crossed. And one of the beauties of boundaries is you don't have to feel angry, irritated, frustrated, or annoyed. Those emotions would be created by they should do X. But since we aren't trying to control what they do, they aren't necessary. This is simply how I love myself. And it's how I love you. Because if I stay here and I put up with behavior that I've decided isn't acceptable, it's going to be hard to love you. Boundaries must be held 100% of the time to be effective. And it is not the other person's job to not cross them. It is your job to hold them. You can lovingly leave the room every time someone yells at you without ever thinking they shouldn't be yelling and without ever being mad about their yelling. It's not their job to stop yelling at you. It is your job to take care of yourself. We set boundaries to protect ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and only you can decide what that means. But most situations are not boundary issues. Most situations are us thinking someone should behave in a certain way. So my recommendation is to treat everything as an expectation issue first before considering a boundary. If you don't take out the trash, I won't have sex with you is not a boundary. That's an ultimatum. Taking out the trash is not about protecting yourself. It's about your expectations of how someone else should behave. So think of boundaries as the rules of engagement for your life. They're how you teach people to treat you, and they're a reflection of your self-respect and self-worth. An essential element of setting boundaries is expecting pushback. Setting boundaries is not easy. People often don't react well when you start showing up differently. Remember, they have a primitive brain too. Primitive brains like everything to stay the same because they know the danger level of things that are familiar. It has no idea what to make of something new, and it doesn't know how dangerous it is. Their reaction is totally normal. My favorite thing to offer myself in these uncomfortable moments sounds like this. This is the part where I get to let him be upset. I love using this is the part because it reminds me that nothing has gone wrong. This was expected, even though it feels uncomfortable. You can simply feel uncomfortable without reacting to it. We don't need to do anything to make it go away. And it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It is just part of the deal. Now, you might be thinking, do I really need boundaries? Here are some signs that you lack boundaries. They are the consequences of not having boundaries. Your relationships tend to be difficult or dramatic. You lose your identity. You are frequently frustrated. You hate letting people down. You find decision making challenging. You experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and guilt. You are often tired or feel drained for no apparent reason. You have decreased well-being and happiness. Your needs always come last. You resent others for taking advantage of you. Your self-esteem takes a nosedive. You are a tiny bit annoyed much of the time. You are constantly the victim of situations. You secretly fear being rejected or abandoned. It's like being shackled to everyone else's wants and needs, leaving no room for your own. But here's the good news. Setting and holding boundaries can change all of that. It's like finding the key to those shackles and setting yourself free. When you start setting and holding boundaries, something magical happens. You begin to respect yourself more, feel more in control of your life, have more energy for the things that matter to you, experience less stress and less anxiety, and develop deeper, more authentic relationships. Boundaries allow you to love and care for others without sacrificing yourself in the process. So you're not doing it at the expense of yourself. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually set boundaries. Here is a step-by-step guide. Number 1, identify the boundary. Before you can set a boundary, you need to know what you want. Get clear on what's okay and not okay for you. How do you want to be treated? What behavior is unacceptable? Number 2, make the request. Once you know what you want, communicate it clearly. Use I statements and be specific. Number 3, set the consequence. This is crucial. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. Decide what you will do if your boundary is crossed. And number 4, follow through. This is where the rubber meets the road. If your boundary is crossed, you must enforce the consequence every single time. So let's break this down with an example. Let's say you have a friend who always calls you late at night to vent about their problems. And you love your friend, but these late night calls are disrupting your sleep and affecting your work performance. Now, it is your job to protect yourself physically and financially. So here's how you might set a boundary. Number 1, identify the boundary. You want uninterrupted sleep so you can perform well at work. Number 2, make the request. I care about you and I want to support you, but I don't take calls after 9 p.m. I need that time to wind down and get enough sleep. Number 3, set the consequence. If you call after 9 p.m., I won't answer. We can catch up the next day. Number 4, follow through. If your friend calls after 9 p.m., don't answer. Text them the next morning to check in. Now remember, you're not telling your friend what to do. You're simply stating what you will do. This is key. Boundaries are about your behavior, not controlling someone else's. Setting boundaries is one thing, but holding them, that's where the real work and the real magic happens. So here are some tips to help you stay strong. Number 1, remember why you set the boundary. When you are tempted to let a boundary slide, like answer the phone after 9 because you know she's having a hard time, remember and remind yourself why you set it in the first place. How does it serve you and your relationships? Number 2, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself as you learn this new skill. You'll probably make some mistakes along the way. That is what humans do. What matters is that you keep trying. Be kind to yourself. Number 3, accept and expect discomfort. Holding boundaries, especially at first, can feel uncomfortable. That is normal. Remind yourself that discomfort is the price of growth. Number 4, have a support system. Surround yourself with people who understand and support your journey. They can offer encouragement when you need it most. Hire a coach if necessary. And number 5, celebrate your wins. Every time you successfully hold a boundary, celebrate it. You're building a new, more empowered version of yourself. Now, even with the best intentions and the clearest communication, there will be times when your boundaries are crossed. So here's how to handle it. Number 1, stay calm. Remember, it's not their job to respect your boundaries. It's your job to hold them. They get to be whoever they want to be. Negative emotion is entirely optional. How do you want to feel if your boundary is crossed? Number 2, restate your boundary. Sometimes people need reminders. Clearly and calmly restate your boundary. Number 3, enforce consequences. When your boundary is crossed, enforce the consequence. This might mean leaving a situation, limiting contact, or whatever you decided when you set the boundary. And number 4, seek support. If you are experiencing persistent boundary violations, it can be extremely helpful to seek support from a therapist or a coach. Setting and holding boundaries is a journey, not a destination. It is a skill that you will continue to refine throughout your life. But with each boundary you set and hold, you're reclaiming your power and your freedom. You're saying to the world, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how I expect to be treated. I love myself enough to take care of myself. And that, my friend, is incredibly liberating. Remember, you deserve to have your boundaries respected. You deserve to feel safe, valued, and respected in your relationships. You deserve to live a life that aligns with your values and needs. And all of these are your job. So go ahead, set those boundaries. Hold them with love and firmness. Watch as your relationships deepen, your self-respect grows, and you step into a freer, more empowered version of yourself. You've got this. And if you need support along the way, I am here to help. Let's break those shackles and set you free one boundary at a time. Here are some questions to consider. In what areas of your life do you feel the need for stronger boundaries? What is one small boundary you can start implementing today? How might your life look different if you had clear, consistent boundaries? What's holding you back from setting the boundaries you know you need? Remember, the journey to freedom through boundaries starts with a single step. Why not take that step today? Live free, love life. Thank you for watching this episode of Live Free, Love Life. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, comment, and share. See you next time.